Ben Ledi way in the distance behind me. So I'm in Stirling, that's Stirling Castle there. We're going to head into Cambusbarron and then skirt some low craggy hills and make our way towards the Bannockburn Heritage Centre. At the time of the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, Stirling Castle was in English hands. It was in fact one of two castles that remained in English hands, Stirling and Berwick. All the rest that had at one time been occupied by English forces had been taken back by the Scots. Edward II of England was keen to make sure that Stirling Castle didn't go the same way as those that had been recaptured. If he lost control, if he lost Stirling Castle, he would effectively lose control of Scotland. So he came up here with an absolutely massive army, something like 27,000 men, 25,000 on foot and 2,000 on horse. And his intention was to make for Stirling Castle and secure it, make sure it didn't fall into Scottish hands. But there was a small problem of a Scots army blocking his path at Bannockburn. Well, no pun intended, this used to be a well. It seems to be going under a variety of names. It's called Bruce's Well here. It has been called Chapel Well and even Christ's Well, a holy well. Although not just a holy well, I think it was a pretty major water supply for Cambusbarron at one stage, until it became contaminated and made a lot of people ill. It was called Chapel Well because quite near here used to be a chapel, and it is said that on the eve of the Battle of Bannockburn, Robert the Bruce took the sacrament in that chapel, and it is thought that he did in fact drink from this well. It is also said that the water from this well was used in services immediately before and on the very site of the Battle of Bannockburn. a lovely seat and an absolutely beautiful view. Looking towards, I think that's Ben Ledi at Callander. A very well placed seat. So this is Gillies Hill, however you pronounce it, just here. Part of it's a quarry and there's an awful lot of huge boulders just sort of sitting there. At the time of the Battle of Bannockburn, at the battle, those who were part of the Scots army but were not involved in any fighting, folk who weren't soldiers, hid in this hill. You know, we're talking servants, blacksmiths, cooks, armourers, just people who were needed to keep an army going, to oil the machinery of war, or whatever you might say, just who weren't doing any fighting. So they sort of hid. To be honest, I'm not sure if hid is the word. You know, it was prudent for them to stay out of the way, not to draw attention to themselves. You know, you didn't want any English knights bearing down on you, thinking you were easy prey. Towards the end of the battle, when it was becoming clear that the English were struggling, all these folk actually emerged from this hill and headed towards the battle in preparation for cleaning up the mess, you might say, dealing with the dead and injured and gathering up any arms and things that you didn't want to go to waste. But when the English army, who, as I say, were already struggling, saw them, they thought it was a reserve force of Scots. And it was a turning point in the battle. And it just hastened the demise of the English army, who left the field with haste, many being trapped between two rivers or streams, the Bannockburn and another smaller stream, and I'm sure many drowned in these waters. So these people, sometimes referred to as the sma folk or small folk, I don't know what was small about them. I think somebody who was a blacksmith or an armourer would probably have been quite a big guy. They played a crucial role in the battle.
Well, this is the Bannockburn Monument and Heritage Centre, said to be built just beside the Borestone, a stone that Robert the Bruce was said to have placed his standard in. And that's a statue of him just over there. When I said earlier that the English army was very large, something of the order of 27,000 men, 2,000 of those on horseback, the Scots army was much smaller, about 6,000 strong. And the fact that they defeated a much larger force was not down to luck or a miracle or the intervention of some divine being. It was down to good planning that was all carried out by battle-hardened troops. They made good use of natural features in the landscape, which is often the case in determining how battles are going to go. You know, the more you can make use of natural features in the landscape, the better, really. In this case, it was marshes and bogs and areas of ground that made it very difficult for cavalry to advance through. And where there wasn't marshes or bogs, they dug a number of pits and positioned various wooden spikes in the ground and various things that in the end just made it very difficult for English cavalry to carry out any effective charge. And this was a battle that eventually, just a few years later, paved the way for Scotland's freedom from English domination, at least for a while. I'm Eddie Burns. Until the next time, take care.